Hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of the live chat. We are back. It is so good to see everyone once again. I am feeling great. I am pumped. I am so excited to be back to the live chat. Hopefully things run good today. The last live chat we had some issues, but fingers crossed everything runs smoothly today. It is so good to be back. It's so good to see everyone. So really quick off the top, just for people that might be new here to the chat, the way this works, you drop your comments, you drop your questions down into chat. I see them all. I get to as many as possible. Two ways to do that. First of all, there is the super chat option. Basically, you just type your question in, hit the donation, and I get a notification and I hit super chats immediately. As soon as they pop up, I get to super chats first. However, of course, don't feel obligated to do that. You can just ask your question for free. You just drop it into chat and I hit as many free questions as possible. Depending on the size of the chat, I can't always hit every single free question, but I do hit a lot of them. So either way, you can drop those questions and I get to as many as I can. Couple topics that we can talk about today. First of all, there is Sony Santa Monica seemingly implying that there is a brand new IP in the works over there. Now, we don't have that for sure yet, but there are some major signs that that is going down over at Sony. So we can talk about that, kind of brainstorm some ideas on what it could be, talk about Sony studios in general, how we're starting to get more and more signs that Sony's major premier studios have more than one game in the works each. Yes, there are a lot of signs that Sony is turning their teams into two game studios. So that's pretty exciting. Second of all, of course, December NPD sales came out just recently last week. There's a ton we can talk about in regards to that. We have updates on hardware sales. We have updates on software sales, on and on and on. Tons and tons of data there we can talk about. And we have the Resident Evil showcase today. That's right. It's hitting later today. We already know we're going to see Resident Evil 8 Village gameplay, but there are also some teases that we're going to see more there. So are we going to see Resident Evil 4 remake? I think there's a strong chance. So anyways, everyone, that's just a few of the topics, but this chat is really driven by you and your questions. So you can drop anything you want and we will get to as much as possible. Everyone, big UFC fight this weekend too. So for any MMA fans, we've got a giant rematch in Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier. I am stoked. Y'all know I love MMA. So if you have any MMA questions, we can hit those as well. Okay. So before I dive into your questions, I do want to really quick give an overview of December NPD, just for anyone that hasn't seen the results yet. And that way we also have context around the sales for whenever everyone does ask. So first of all, in regards to hardware, Nintendo Switch was the best-selling platform yet again. It continues to completely dominate in sales. Nintendo Switch is just on fire. It's ridiculous. Basically, yeah, it was the number one selling platform. The annual dollar sales of the Switch, so revenue, were the second highest ever in history, only behind the Wii. So that shows you how insane 2020 was for Switch. It was the second highest year for a piece of hardware ever in the US, y'all. That is crazy. For PlayStation 5, it finished as the number 2 selling console in dollar sales for the year. And then NPD also noted that it is for the first 2 months, November, December, it is the highest revenue ever for a PlayStation system. Interesting that they specifically mentioned revenue, though, and not unit sales. I won't go too into details here, but the NPD numbers have leaked. You can find those online. I don't give out the hardcore units here out of respect for NPD and their proprietary data. However, those units have leaked, so they are online and you can draw your own conclusions from that in terms of what it might mean. Now for December, the best-selling titles for the month, number 1, Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. Call of Duty just continues to be insane. Number 2, Cyberpunk 2077 debuts at number 2. Assassin's Creed Valhalla continues to show mind-blowing legs. Number 3 for the month, right after November. Remember, y'all, November and December are the biggest months of the year. So for Valhalla to still be in that top 3 in its second month, my goodness, Assassin's Creed Valhalla just on fire. Spider-Man Miles Morales comes in at number 4. Great result for Miles Morales as well. Madden 21 at number 5. Animal Crossing New Horizons at number 6. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe at number 7. NBA 2K21 number 8. Immortals Phoenix Rising at number 9. That's pretty nice to see, right? I think that's a higher placement than I expected for Immortals Phoenix Rising. To hit that top 10 in December, I mean, not a bad debut, to be perfectly honest with you. Number 10, Super Mario 3D All-Stars. Number 11, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Number 12, Just Dance 2021. Number 13, Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. 14, FIFA 21. 15, New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe. Number 16, Super Mario Odyssey. Do you see a trend here, y'all? A lot of Nintendo games. Number 17, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Number 18, Super Mario Party. 19, Ring Fit Adventure. And number 20, Mortal Kombat 11. That is nuts. Look at how many Nintendo games were in that top 20. But, I mean, to be honest, it's pretty much expected when you're selling as many units as Nintendo Switch. Okay, everyone, I think that is good for our overview. Let's start jumping into questions, y'all. Start dropping as many questions as you've got into chat, because I'm going to start hitting questions right now. Okay, we've got 2 super chats right off the bat. Timmer72299, as always, with a 5 super chat saying, keep up the great work. You keep up the great work as well, Timmer. You're one of the best out there on Twitter. Keep being amazing. We missed you in the last live chat. That was like the first one in a long time that I noticed you weren't in there. I kept waiting for a Timmer question. I think that was the last chat. And yeah, you weren't there. It was surprising. It was like, where's Timmer, right? But it's so good to see you, Timmer, and thank you for the super chat. Franklin Clinton 98 with a 5 super chat. Thank you so much, Franklin, for a super chat. You're always so generous over here. Thoughts on Returnal's sales potential? This is fun. I think 70 to 80 price tag is going to create challenges as far as expected quality and just amount of pre-orders. This is a great question, Franklin. That higher price tag is going to be a bit of an interesting scenario to watch unfold over time with new IPs, right? We haven't seen a ton of new IPs yet launching at this raised price tag, right? If you notice, a lot of those more expensive next-gen games that just came out were in established franchises, right? It was the Call of Duties. It was the sports games like the NBAs. It was, Demon Souls, which is not a new IP, right? It's, first of all, a remake, and second of all, part of the Souls, everyone knows what a Souls game is. I could go on and on. Most of these new games that we've seen at these higher price tags are established series. It is going to be very interesting, Franklin Clinton, to watch as we get more of these new IPs to see if that raised price tag has any sort of impact on sales, right? My personal thoughts is I think Returnal is going to do well as long as it's a good game. Now, whenever I say do well, I'm personally not expecting Returnal to be this like giant breakout success, right? I'm not expecting it to go out there and be this like 5 to 10 million unit selling giant brand new IP, the next Horizon Zero Dawn, or I'm not expecting anything like this. But PS5 right now is fairly light in terms of like new releases coming up over the next few months, right? We've kind of talked about that online, that, there are some big games coming, but the first like 3 months or so for PS5 and Xbox isn't like mind-blowing. There's some cool stuff in there, but there's not a ton of big AAAs. And I think those PS5 owners are going to be looking for new experiences, right, to really push their hardware, to take advantage of this brand new console they just spent money on. So I think as long as Returnal is a solid game, I do think it's going to sell pretty good, even with that raised price tag. That's kind of what my expectations are for right now, Franklin. All right, super chats are cleared for now. Thank you so much for those 2 super chats. Let's hop into some free questions. Split End saying hello to everyone. It is so good to see you, Split End. Thanks for being the best mod in the business. You're just an awesome dude, Split End. Good to see you. Good to see Benji's tank top. Good to see Dark Detective. Dark Detective, you are awesome. Don't see you in chat all the time, so it's super good to see you here live. And Red Dead Series saying, what's up? What is up, Red Dead Series? Okay, so first question here from Costas. Hi, Benji. What do you think would sell better just on name alone? A Naughty Dog new IP or Santa Monica's? That's a great question, Costas. You know, personally, I'm going to say Naughty Dog. Now, Sony Santa Monica is a beast, right? They are an awesome studio. They have like really, I mean, over, you know, with the success of God of War, that took that studio to the next level. You know, Cory Barlog has become like a huge name in the industry. But there's something about that Naughty Dog name, right? Naughty Dog is like considered the premier PlayStation studio. Now, there's a ton of competition in that space, right? A lot of Sony studios the last few years have really stepped their game up. You look at teams like Sucker Punch. You look at, you know, Guerrilla Games, right? There's a lot of teams at Sony, Insomniac. There's a lot of teams that are nipping on the heels of Naughty Dog and are growing and really taking things to the next level. But Naughty Dog is still considered the team. You know, when you look at Uncharted, when you look at The Last of Us, when you look at the sales success, also with the extreme critic success, I think Naughty Dog, if we're talking just name, right? We haven't seen these new games yet. You know, we don't know for sure what these games are going to look like, what Santa Monica's new IP might be, what Naughty Dog's new IP might be. So that's going to completely change things. But if we're talking purely name value, I would put Naughty Dog as the S tier, you know, at PlayStation. Benji's tank top. Hey Benji, a recent PR blog post regarding Xbox Game Studios from Xbox France, I believe that's what it is, Xbox FR, hinted that the coalition is working on more than one project. Do you think they are making a new IP? This is a great question, Benji's tank top, and there's been rumors for quite a while that the coalition was doing other things. I believe one of the rumors that was floating was that they're helping the initiative with Perfect Dark. Now, I have no idea if that's true, and in fact, that might not even be like a current rumor. I just know at one time that was a rumor that was floating around, was that the coalition was helping out the initiative. That would be interesting if they're doing, you know, more than one project. I'd be surprised if they're doing more than one Gears game currently. You know, Gears 5, I thought was a great game personally. I thought it was a great game. Like, I really liked Gears 5. But it didn't really light the world on fire in sales, right? In fact, it wasn't, by Gears of War standards, it wasn't a very high seller at all. And then you look at Gears Tactics, which was also really good, I thought. But again, not a giant seller per se. So I'd be surprised if Microsoft's like full steam ahead on multiple Gears projects right now. I do think Gears 6 is going to be a thing, right? I mean, the storyline is set up for Gears 6 like hugely, right? Gears 5 is quite the cliffhanger. No spoilers, everyone, but like clearly they're intending on making a Gears of War 6. And it's still a huge franchise for Microsoft. I definitely think there's a new Gears of War game in the works. But I'd be surprised if it's more than one. So if the coalition's working on more than one game, I suspect, yeah, it's something Gears of War 6 and something completely different. A new IP, I'm not sure. That'd be cool. I mean, they're supremely talented, right? Even if you don't like Gears of War, I think everyone has to admit the coalition is like insanely talented. I mean, when you look at how good Gears 5 looks visually, it's nuts, right? That is one of the best looking games out there. Like, it really is. Like, you know, you might not like the art style, but I'm saying technically it is gorgeous. So, yeah, I hope that they're working on something else. That'd be really exciting. I want a Gear 6. But I would also love to see something different and new from the coalition as well. All right, we had a couple super chats drop, so let me hit those super chats really quick. Wow, 3 super chats in a row. Thank you so much, everyone. All right, Timber72299 with a second super chat with 5. Thank you so much, Timber. Thoughts on the rumor about Tencent reportedly raising several billion to buy a US or Korean gaming company, and who do you think it will be? Yeah, great question. For anyone that missed this, there was a report today that Tencent is raising several $billion, right? That's a lot of freaking money for an acquisition, right? You're not going for something small, especially for a company like Tencent that already has a ton of cash, right? Tencent's not like some small company that's cash strapped that, doesn't have a lot. The fact that they're raising billions and they already have a ton of money implies they're making a huge purchase, right? Not some small purchase, a huge one. Dark Detective just mentioned in chat, and I first heard this from Dark, so shout out to Dark Detective. I hadn't seen this rumor anywhere. But Dark has mentioned, and he just dropped it in chat, that there's a rumor it's going to be Zynga. Now, this is not the most exciting possibility, right? I think whenever we hear several billion, they're going to go out and buy someone. The theories start flying like, ooh, what are we going to see? This could be potentially industry shaking. But there's a rumor around there that it is Zynga. I'll be honest, that's kind of the boring answer, but it's also the one that makes the most sense, to be honest with you. There's some other ones out there that you ask questions about, right? Could it be Bungie? We know Tencent is a minority. They have a minority stake in Bungie now. They invested in them a little bit ago, but I don't think it's Bungie. You could always, is it PUBG Corp? I don't think it's going to be them either. Zynga just makes the most sense. Now, I know that's not exciting for console gamers and core gamers and things like that because Zynga is basically a mobile company, right? But when you look at what Tencent's invested in the most, when you look at where they get the most of their money, Zynga makes sense. So my hunch is if that's a rumor that's floating around, that's probably what it is. It's probably Zynga, which is huge for the mobile space, right? Again, not as exciting for us, but for mobile, that's giant. That's gigantic. Plastic Hearts Podcast with a 10 super chat. Thank you, Plastic Hearts. You're always so generous over here. Thank you so much. You're always so supportive. Thank you so much, Plastic Hearts. With Switch sales consistently killing it around the globe, do we need a Switch Pro reveal in 2021 like rumors suggest? What year would Nintendo really need a Switch refresh? This is an awesome question. So here's the thing, Plastic Hearts. I agree. They don't necessarily need a Switch Pro, right? There are rumors flying that there is some sort of Switch revision coming this year. It seems like we get these rumors every year, but I actually think it has more validity this time than there has been in the past. Here's what I'll say. Keep in mind these revisions and new pieces of hardware and things like this, they are in development for years, right? It's not one of those things that just, 6 months ago they decided, hey, let's develop a Switch Pro, right? You have to think that if there's one coming, Nintendo would have started R&D on this well over a year ago, right? Maybe even like 2 years ago they started R&D on this. So back then, they wouldn't have necessarily known the state the Switch would be in now in sales, right? So if they're making that plan right now, yeah, there's not really a lot of indication that Nintendo needs the Switch Pro. Last year was colossal for Switch, and 2021 is starting out absolutely on fire as well. So I don't think they necessarily need it to maintain momentum. However, like I said, this R&D would have been done quite a while ago. And also, I do think it will help, right? Like, they're already in an amazing position, but just imagine with a Switch Pro as well, right? If this is a real thing, if it's high quality, I mean, imagine if they launched a Switch Pro alongside Breath of the Wild 2. We're talking crazy sales. I mean, crazy. They already have crazy sales, and just imagine if those launch alongside each other. Breath of the Wild 2 is going to be colossal as it is. Plus, you're going to get people that had original Switches that are going to be stoked to play Breath of the Wild 2 in the best way they can. And you're also going to entice people that have still waited to buy in to be like, wow, here we go. We got a Zelda. We got a new console on the market. Boom, I'm jumping in. So, yeah, I agree. Plastic Hearts, they don't need it, but it will be like huge for them if that really is a thing. Georgie with a super chat. Prediction for Game Pass subscribers by the end of 2021. This is a great question. So here's the thing. I've been on the record publicly stating, I think, and this is an estimate, right? Keep in mind with estimates, they're always going to be, varied. Sometimes I'm spot on with estimates. Sometimes I'm not spot on with estimates. It's a hard thing to nail this stuff down. Hey, if we could all nail all of our estimates, we'd be billionaires, right? We'd be getting paid billions, just off our returns from investing at the right times. But I think Microsoft probably hit 20 million subscribers or very close by the end of 2020. They were already well over 15 million several months before the end of the year. We saw the growth rate that Game Pass had throughout 2020, right? It skyrocketed throughout the year. So you look at how good momentum was for it. Then you had the Series X and Series S launch, and we know that at launch, 70% attach rate for Game Pass to those consoles from both new and returning subscribers. But you're talking 70%. At launch, 7 out of every 10 people that had an Xbox, next-gen Xbox, they either subscribed for the first time or they were already subscribers to Game Pass. That's huge. So I would think that they were very close to 20 million, if not at 20 million by the end of the year. So I'm going to use that as my baseline when looking ahead at 2021. Keep in mind, we're going to get Halo this year. Definitely over 30 million. I think they can hit. That's only an additional 10 million subs throughout 12 months, which 10 million might sound like a lot to add, but they added, basically that and more in 2020. I'm not going to go higher. I'm not going to go as high as 40 million because you essentially are saying they're going to double next year, which is possible, right? I'm not going to say 40 million subs to Game Pass is impossible to hit by the end of 2021, but doubling where they're at right now could be a challenge. So I'm going to say 30 million plus. I think they will at least hit 30 million by the end of the year. And it could be a lot higher, right? This is just like kind of a conservative estimate, just looking at where we're at now. But at least 30 million. Joseki here with a 5 super chat. Thank you so much, Joseki. Hi, Benji. Have you seen the Media Create numbers this week? Nintendo Switch with a 93.5% market share. It's insane. Japan A to AA devs will still be developing for Nintendo Switch for years. Poor PS5. Yeah, so I actually sent out a tweet about this. Listen to this, y'all. This is some crazy numbers coming out of Japan. Okay, listen to this, and then I'm going to give you some context around it. Because it's nuts. It's actually nuts, the gap that we're seeing right now. Okay, so via Famitsu, last week, Switch sold 170,000 units, which is insane for the beginning of January. I mean, it's freaking nuts. And then PS5, this is just Japan, only sold 7,328 consoles. Look at that gap, y'all. And for the 2021 year so far, Switch has sold 650,000 units, which is, nuts. And PS5 has sold 29,000. I mean, that gap is unbelievable. Now, there is a lot of factors for this. First of all, I said I hope that Sony increases production to Japan, soon. And I think some people took this as me saying, oh, if there was enough production, PS5 can match Switch. No, that's just not going to happen, right? Switch is clearly unbelievably dominant in Japan. Even if they had maximum number units shipped to Japan, I still don't think PS5 would be matching Switch. Switch is just on fire. It has no competition in Japan. but I do think it would be better than what we're seeing out of PS5. I mean, these numbers are very bad. To put it in context, PS5 in Japan, I saw someone on Reset Era posted a graph. It's tracking below Wii U, y'all. It is tracking below the Wii U in Japan. That is yikes. That's bad. Now, I think it would be doing better with better stock. Would it be matching the Switch? Heck no, not even close. But I think it'd be doing better than this. This is very, very low. The big problem also for Sony in Japan, outside of, shipment levels, we've talked about here in the chat, it's also release slate, right? PS5 just does not have many big games for Japan right now. Like, not much at all. It has Resident Evil 8 Village coming, and that should do decent. But keep in mind, Resident Evil in Japan isn't like a Giga Giant franchise, right? It's strong, but it's not like this huge beast. And after that, nothing that's like a serious Japan console mover until Final Fantasy 16. And who knows when that's going to come out, right? That could be quite a ways away. So yeah, Sony is definitely in a difficult spot in Japan. Now, things in the West look way more promising. Keep in mind, this is just one market. That doesn't mean doom and gloom for Sony and doom and gloom for PS5. But yeah, in Japan in particular, looking rough. And as you mentioned, if you're a Japanese, A or double A developer, yeah, you got to be looking at that Nintendo Switch as the way more viable platform for your game, right? It just is. Big Fresh 37 with a 5 super chat. Thank you so much, Big Fresh. Is Gears of War a franchise with life still in it? Or do you think the coalition should move on to something new? The Xbox community seems divided. Big Fresh, here's what I would say. Let me grab a drink really quick. I think that Gears of War needs, one more big game. Right, Gear 6. I definitely think there needs to be a Gear 6. And potentially more after that, right? We can kind of look and assess the situation after that. But at the very least, they need to have Gear 6, right? It is still too big of a franchise to just leave on a cliffhanger, right? Gears 5 clearly set up a sequel. Here's what I would do if I was at Microsoft and the Coalition. I would make Gear 6 the kind of game that can sort of wrap up where we're at for now in the Gear storyline, just in case you decide to move on to something else after that. Because, yeah, Gears 5 wasn't a huge seller. Now, there's some arguments. I'm sure it's done well on Game Pass, right? And Microsoft is going to be looking at games differently, depending on how they perform, not just in sales. But we know, like, Game Pass doesn't necessarily kill your sales. For example, look at Forza Horizon 4. I keep talking about Forza Horizon. Y'all, that game is doing amazing for Microsoft. It is consistently near the most, top played on Game Pass. And look at December NPD, y'all. It was in the top 10 best-selling Xbox games for December. So that means this is an old game, y'all. This is not a new game. So it's doing well on Game Pass, and it's still selling. So Microsoft does have games that are exclusives that can still sell while being on Game Pass. Gears of War seems to be a franchise that struggles to sell a lot with Game Pass. So Big Fresh, I say do Gear 6, make it a great high quality game, make it wrap up the Gears storyline we're in right now. If it's a huge success, go on and make Gear 7 or whatever. But if it's kind of then maybe move on to something else after the last, quote, for now, Gears of War game. All right, thank you for all those super chats, everyone. Those are all cleared for now. I'm going to go back to free questions. Thank you so much. All right, Benji's Tank Top. Do you think Sony Santa Monica's new IP is going to be in a radically different genre from God of War? Actually, Benji's Tank Top, yes. I think whatever this new IP is from Sony Santa Monica will be a lot different than God of War. A lot different. Now, maybe it's still going to be like a character action game of some sort, but I think it's going to be a lot different. And here's the main reason, right? You have to think that Cory Barlog is the one creating this new IP, right? You have to assume that. And for anyone that missed it, why we think Sony Santa Monica is building a new IP, because we actually haven't gone over the exact reason why that is. Most of you probably saw it, but some of you maybe haven't. Sony Santa Monica sent out a tweet that they were hiring, and they were hiring for a new unannounced game. The next God of War is already announced, right? So they're hiring for something that is clearly not God of War Ragnarok, right? You wouldn't already be hiring for the God of War after the God of War that's not even out, right? You know what I'm saying? And Corey had stated after God of War 2018 had finished that the number one thing he wanted to do was make a new IP. Like, he was very public about it. It wasn't one of those things where he like subtly hinted at it. No, he flat out said, I want to make something new. So here's why I think it's not going to be really anything like God of War. If it was something that could easily tie into God of War or kind of make sense with God of War's gameplay and universe, you would have to think Corey could kind of shoehorn his ideas into God of War, right? He already has that vehicle. He already has a proven success. So if it was just some ideas around like, you know, character combat or some interesting plot threads that would also kind of make sense in the God of War universe, you know, he could just tie those together. But the fact that he was pushing so hard to do something new tells me it's going to be nothing like God of War. Like setting, story, etc. I don't think it's going to be anything like it. I would not expect some sort of like mythological, like almost fantasy, you know, type basis. I think it's going to be something totally different. You know, whether that's going to be sci-fi or a realistic modern game. I mean, who knows, right? There's literally no idea. But yeah, I'm not expecting it to be anything like God of War. Something radically different. Kostas, do you think Ghost of Tsushima will end up as the best-selling Sony game released in 2020? Yes. On PSN, it outsold The Last of Us 2 in the US, and it overall has better legs. Also, it likely launched higher than Morales. Kostas, yes. I think long-term, it's going to... Well, this is tough. Okay. Actually, let me stop, Kostas. This is tough. Because we don't really know what the future of The Last of Us 2 is. Okay, and what do I mean by that? Ghost of Tsushima has already gotten its next-gen enhancements, right? It already runs at 60 FPS and stuff like that on PS5. And it also had that additional multiplayer mode already added. Now, for The Last of Us, it has not had any enhancements on PS5 yet. I suspect there will be. The question is, will Sony make you pay for that? Or is it going to be a free update? Who knows yet, but I really doubt that The Last of Us Part 2 is going to get 0 enhancements on PS5, right? That game was too recent, and it was too big of a seller for it to not be. So we have that on the table to boost sales. And then also, clearly, you know, Naughty Dog is working on a multiplayer The Last of Us project. So we also don't know how much that could boost The Last of Us Part 2 sales. You know, maybe people that play the multiplayer game that didn't buy Part 2 yet. What if it's free to play, right? What if, you know, it's a free to play game that could entice people that had never experienced The Last of Us to go back and buy Part 2. So there's a couple big questions on things that could boost Part 2 sales. But in the near short term, let's say the next like 6 months, yes, I think Ghost of Tsushima will pass The Last of Us Part 2, and then maybe The Last of Us Part 2 jumps ahead of it. And the reason is as you noted, Ghost has had better legs. It just has. Now, Part 2 hasn't had terrible legs, but Ghost is having better legs. Even in December NPD, we just saw it outsold The Last of Us for that month. Most months, Ghost of Tsushima is outselling The Last of Us, so it should happen. All right, Super Chat just dropped. Let's hit that Super Chat. Big Fresh 37 with a second Super Chat. Thank you so much, Big Fresh. Thank you so much. Another 5. Thank you. When do you think we should expect this 1 vs 100 spiritual successor? Ooh, I love that. That Phil Spencer has teased many times. 2021 or later. Big Fresh 37, I definitely hope this happens. 1 vs 100 was a blast. That was so much fun. I used to play that, you know, and it was very unique, right? It was like a live game show on your Xbox that you were playing with other people like at a scheduled time. Like we have seen things like that more recently, right? Like especially on mobile, there's been some really big successes like that. But 1 vs 100 was kind of ahead of its time on console. I would love to see something like this come back. I think it's a lot of fun. I think it's a cool thing. And yeah, Phil Spencer has teased something like this. Could happen this year. Tough to say. It's a great question. I could see this being 2021. Yeah, if it's been in the works for a little bit. I would say no later than 2022, right? That would be like the latest. Like the absolute latest I could expect it would be next year, but probably this year or next year would be my guess. Thank you for the super chat. All right, back up to free questions. Dark Detective. Hey Benji, the beginning of a new generation is usually a good time for publishers to launch new IP. I agree. Yep. For example, Watch Dogs last gen. Which AAA publishers do you expect to reveal a new IP this year? Oh, this is fun. Okay. Which publishers will reveal new IP this year? So important to note, Dark Detective isn't saying games that will release this year, right? Because new IP, you usually want a pretty long lead-in time, right? It's not, if it's an established franchise, you can kind of wait to announce it until you're pretty close because the built-in hype cycle is already there, right? Like, you don't have to necessarily announce Fallout 5, whenever that happens, 2 years in advance, right? You can announce Fallout 5 like 6 months beforehand, and people are going to be stoked and go out and buy Fallout. But yeah, something like a new IP, you have to get the marketing out there. You got to get people familiar with what the heck this thing is. So yeah, you usually want a longer lead-in time for new IP than established franchises in terms of announcements. I expect to hear from Microsoft new IP announced this year. I'll just say it right now. Microsoft and Sony both, I expect multiple new IPs to be announced. So those are console manufacturers. Of course, they're publishers as well, but that's kind of cheating. So let's talk about third parties. Ubisoft, right? I mean, you have to assume Ubisoft. Ubisoft always has like 500 games in the works at a time. Their workforce is like enormous. They have thousands and thousands and thousands of employees. So Ubisoft's always got 100 games going at once. So Ubisoft definitely is going to announce something new. EA to me seems tough. I don't think EA, to be honest with you. I don't think we get a new EA IP announcement unless it's like one of their like indie or a partnership projects they've done, right? Remember, they do those like publishing things for those smaller games. So something like that I could see, but I don't think we're going to get a brand new giant IP announced from EA's like flagship studios this year. That would surprise me. Not impossible, but we already know basically everything in the Bioware pipeline coming up. We already know DICE is working on the next Battlefield. So it's hard to imagine a whole lot new from EA announcements. So I'm going to say no to EA. Activision is like all in on just reusing the same IP over and over and over and over and over again. So Activision also, I'm going to say no. Take-Two, I expect, yes. Take-Two, yep. And WB, no. So that's kind of off the top of my head. I would say Ubisoft, Take-Two, Microsoft, and Sony are all very, very likely to announce new IP. Less so EA and Activision and WB. All right, I think I just saw a super chat drop. Yep, from Highlander. Highlander001 with a $2 super chat. Thank you so much, Highlander. Think Sony will get the sequels for Bethesda games. This has been a big debate everywhere on the internet, both in my YouTube chats as well as on my Twitter feed, as well as on everyone's Twitter feed, right? Highlander, here's what I'll say. I think it all comes down to contracts, right? I think it's going to come down to contracts. My hunch is if nothing has been signed for Fallout, Elder Scrolls, etc., and people might be like, what do you mean? keep in mind a lot of times things like, DLC and timed exclusives and timed DLC and things like this are worked out like a long time in advance, right? We don't know if the Elder Scrolls 6 is going to have some kind of PSVR implementation, for example. Who knows if there was some kind of contract worked out around that, beforehand. We know Skyrim works on VR, right? That's the only reason I'm mentioning it. We don't know the contract situation. If there's contracts signed, Microsoft would basically have to buy out those contracts with whoever they're with, right? Find some kind of legal way to buy themselves out of it. Or they're just going to have to let it rock, right? That contract's already done. It doesn't matter if you're acquired, if the contract was signed beforehand. So if there isn't contracts at all on things like the Elder Scrolls 6, I don't think they're going to be on PlayStation, y'all. I don't think so. I think they will be on PC, and I think they will be on Xbox, but I don't know. Starfield's going to tell us a lot, right? That's what I keep saying. Look what happens with Starfield. If Starfield is completely multi-platform, then Elder Scrolls might be as well. That's going to be the one to watch. Starfield. Watch what happens with Starfield. But it's tough to say, Highlander. It's just really, really tough to say right now. Really hard. Oh, this is fun. Ryan Thompson, do you think we will ever get a Spore reboot or sequel? Ryan Thompson, I'm going to say no. I don't think so. Spore wasn't really a big success, and it had so much hype like leading into it that never panned out. And EA owns Spore, right? And EA has been fairly risk adverse, right? If you look at EA's choices, they don't take many risks. EA likes to play things very safe. And I don't think a Spore reboot or sequel is guaranteed to sell well. Now, it could. The concept for Spore was always super interesting. It was just the delivery didn't really live up to what people had hyped themselves up for. EA, I think, is just not risky enough to do that kind of thing. I think Spore is going to be, dead for a while. I mean, who knows? Maybe one day it could happen. But to me, it's a long shot, Ryan. I think that's a long shot. Benji asking about the Tencent rumors and if it could be, CD Projekt Red or Platinum. Benji, we went over this. I think it's Zynga. That is the rumor floating around, and that makes sense to me. So Zynga makes sense. I think that's what it's going to be. All right, Ryan Thompson and Chris Jenkins here, both asking very similar questions. Gabe Newell, this is first Ryan, saying Gabe Newell announced, if anyone missed this, Gabe just did a big interview, that Valve has multiple games in development waiting to be announced. What do you think they are, and do you think we will ever get Half-Life 3? And then Chris Jenkins saying, what games are Gabe Newell hiding? I think there is a Half-Life game in development, yep. After Alex, it basically showed that Valve is willing to return to the Half-Life universe, right? Now, granted, it's a prequel. Half-Life Alex is a prequel, right? It's not Half-Life 3 like so many people want. Will it be Half-Life 3? I don't know. But after all those years of waiting where it looked like Valve was too scared, quote, quote, to return to Half-Life because of the expectations, they did finally go back. And it was basically met with success, right? Now, granted, it wasn't a gigantic seller, but it's hard to be when you're, tied down to VR. And it proved, though, like critically, it was a ginormous success. I played it, and y'all, even if you don't like Half-Life and you don't like VR, Half-Life Alyx was freaking mind-blowing. One of the most insane things I've ever played in my life, honestly. Like, the sense of presence and scale is hard to describe without experiencing it. Even if you've played VR before, Alyx is almost a different level, y'all. I'm telling you, it's insane. So yeah, I think there's some kind of Half-Life working. Yep, I think they wouldn't have brought back Alyx unless they were like, we're going to return to this universe. So a new Half-Life of some sort, whether it's a spin-off or the actual 3, who knows? But yeah, that makes sense to me. Left 4 Dead seems unlikely, especially with Back 4 Blood about to come out with the original developers of Left 4 Dead. Now, granted, Valve themselves could be making the next Left 4 Dead, so it could happen. But right now, I'm going to say less likely for that. But it could. You know, it could. And more VR stuff, right? They didn't go into VR just to make Half-Life Alyx. Like, they're super invested in VR. They have their own VR kit, right? So more VR games. You know, that might not be as exciting for people, but there's going to be more VR. There's just zero question that Valve is going to make more VR games. Franklin Clinton saying, looking fit, Benji. Thank you so much. I've been working hard. You know, the last year I worked out a lot, and I got a lot of benefits from it. I lost 30 pounds last year. Might not look it, but I lost 30 pounds. Burning off the fat. You know, I was just carrying some excess weight that I didn't really want. Now I'm very lean, so now I'm building up muscle. Now I'm in the muscle building phase, right? And there's the whole, well, you want to bulk, right? You want to be, you know, eat as much as possible and get as big as possible, and then you shed after you build the bulk. I didn't want to really go that route. I didn't like the weight I was carrying, and so I burned that off first, and now I'm building up. But thank you, Franklin Clinton. I've been working hard. I've been working really, really hard. Had to take a couple weeks off because I had a minor injury, but I'm back to it. This has been an awesome chat, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. This chat has been way better than last week's, right? Last week's was rough. So I hope you're all enjoying it as well. I know I'm having a blast here, everyone. Silenced PP7. Good to see you, Silenced. How do you anticipate Forza and Gran Turismo evolving? Ooh, interesting. Over the next generation. And do you think we could see either series introduce motorcycles? Ooh, fun. Or get bike racing spin-offs? Silence PP7, great question. Great question. Gran Turismo seems like it is going to invest back into more single-player content, right? Gran Turismo Sport was kind of lacking, especially at launch, on single-player stuff. It was really designed like a kind of as like a games-as-a-service online component. And obviously GT7 is also going to have that. But the little bit of footage they've shown does seem to indicate they're going to further invest back into that single-player component. So I think that's how you're going to see Gran Turismo evolve, is they're really going to beef up their single player offerings. Forza, I would say that is interesting because we know how Forza Horizon is going to keep evolving, right? It's going to keep going to new destinations, giving you brand new open maps. You know, Forza Horizon is a lot easier to evolve than mainline Forza. You know, because you're dealing with an open world and you can jump all over the place. Whereas mainline Forza, you know, you're a track racer. It's hard to evolve too much in that space besides even more realistic and even better graphics and even more cars. You know what I mean? You're a little more confined. Here's what I would say Sounds PP7 I think would really help Forza in particular is a lot more like brand new tracks, custom made tracks. I know people play a lot of simulators for the very realistic, real-world racetracks, right? But some of the best Forza tracks, I think, have actually been ones they created themselves. I think that could be one way to really help boost that, is give you very cool settings, you know, do things that aren't necessarily, you know, done in the real world. And I don't think that means, oh, make Forza have fantasy sci-fi tracks. I'm not necessarily saying that because people want their realistic sim racer. But give us more of those in kind of exotic locations that are still real world, that are very, very cool. I think that's one thing you could do with Forza that would really help. And I hate to say it because a lot of times people don't like season passes, but maybe do some sort of season pass content. And I mean like almost like a battle pass, right? Where you unlock cars and you level up for both Gran Turismo and Forza. I could see that being a viable path for DLC, right? Something like that I could see as well. In terms of motorcycles, I think I would see Gran Turismo doing that before Forza, but I could be radically off. But I could see that happening, yeah. 2 super chats just dropped. Holy cow. 2 super chats. Benji with a 5 super chat. Thank you so much, Benji. Benji, why Grand Theft Auto 5 and Minecraft I said Minecraft. Minecraft keep selling that much? Are Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and Animal Crossing heading that way, selling for years to come? Yeah, so Grand Theft Auto 5 and Minecraft are just mind-blowing. Here's the thing. Minecraft is one of those things that is so accessible. I mean, you could be 5 and play Minecraft, and you could be 95 and play Minecraft, right? Like, it's fun regardless, like, period. It just literally is one of those games that hits every single demographic, both in age as well as taste, right? You see people that are like hardcore shooter players that also play Minecraft, or RPG and also play Minecraft. You know, it's just one of those games that has really ridiculous universal appeal. In terms of Grand Theft Auto, it's literally Grand Theft Auto Online. You know, I hate to say that, you know, because so many people love the single player components of Grand Theft Auto and Rockstar games, and tens of millions of people buy Grand Theft Auto for its single player. So I'm not sitting here telling you, oh, Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to have no single player. It's only going to be GTA Online. No, for two reasons. First of all, like I said, millions and millions and millions of people buy Grand Theft Auto still for the single player, and also Rockstar and, you know, its founders love telling stories. Like, that is part of their DNA. They really love telling these big epic storylines. Otherwise, you wouldn't have seen what you just did with Red Dead Redemption 2, right? Grand Theft Auto 5 Online was already gigantic while they were developing Red Dead 2. If they were going to pull back from single player, they would have done it then, but they didn't. In fact, they went all in. Red Dead 2 is like a 100-hour single player game. It's huge. So, you know, but what's making it sell so long is GTA Online. It's just gigantic. Like, that is the driving force. So many people play Grand Theft Auto Online. In terms of Mario Kart 8 and Animal Crossing, the big question for Mario Kart is when Mario Kart 9 is going to come out, right? Because you have to think once that does happen, it will impact Mario Kart 8. Now, it's still going to have great legs for a long time afterwards, but yeah, you have to think. Mario Kart 8 came out a long time ago. Even Deluxe has been years. I have to think Mario Kart 9 is coming sometime, I would say, in the next 2 years. So we'll see. It's going to keep selling like a freaking beast until Mario Kart 9 at the very least. So you still have at least, I would say, 1 to 2 huge years left in it. And then still legs after that. Still going to have legs, even with MK9. And Animal Crossing, yeah, that's going to sell until the next Animal Crossing, which is probably going to be years, right? So, yep, they're on their way to becoming long-term beasts. Timmer with a huge super chat, 25. Timmer, thank you so much, Timmer. That is incredibly kind. I mean, my goodness, Timmer. You are literally one of my biggest supporters. Thank you so much. Do you see E3 happening this year? Plus, do you see the next Doom game outselling Doom 2016? Ooh. Giving it's the best-selling game in id Software history. Okay, so two parts. E3, I think, does not happen this year unless it's some sort of online-facing thing. I still just don't think, even with vaccines rolling out and stuff, I still think that this year is going to be a year we don't see a ton of these big, gigantic, you know, huge gatherings of people from all over the world, right? Because E3 is one of those things, like, you have literally people fly in from around the world to attend it, and then you stuff thousands and tens of thousands of people into one center. I just still think, even with a vaccine, 2021's too early for that. I do think we're going to see a lot of that stuff return in 2022, though. I think by then, vaccine rollout and things like this, I think it'll be enough under control that 2022 will go back to fairly normal, okay? I'm not going to say everything's 100% done, but I think our way of life is back to fairly normal in 2022. So, like I said, unless E3 works to have some sort of online streaming component, you know, which we've seen, right? We've seen companies pursue this kind of thing. I thought that last year, WB and DC had a huge success with DC fandom. Anyone that didn't watch that, that was like really good. It was basically DC's way of making their own online Comic-Con for fans. And actually, I thought it was like excellently handled. So if E3 could do something like that, I could see it. But I don't think we're going to get an in-person E3 till 2022. In terms of Doom, ooh. Do you mean Doom Eternal or whatever's going to come after this? Doom Eternal started faster than Doom. And I think it will outsell Doom 2016 long term, actually. It started a lot faster, especially like PC. Doom Eternal was giant on PC. A lot of people don't realize that because it did like good on console. Not like mind-blowing, but it did really good on console. But on PC in particular, Doom Eternal did great, like really freaking good. If you look at it like its concurrent numbers and even where it was in the Steam bestsellers charts for the year that Valve put out, it was huge. So I think Doom Eternal actually is going to outsell 2016 eventually. And whatever comes after this might be a little more controversial because actually Doom Eternal was met very mixed with a lot of people. A lot of people thought it was too hard, too complicated. So that's going to be a bigger question, how the next Doom performs. But I think Eternal will outsell 2016. Big Fresh 37 with another super chat. Big Fresh, I think that's your third one. Will Xbox keep QuakeCon? Ooh, this is interesting. Merge it with XO maybe. Ooh. Ooh. This is a good question. I've not had this asked yet. This is one aspect of the whole Bethesda Microsoft acquisition I have not had asked. I honestly, Big Fresh, could see this going either way. And I know that sounds almost like a cop-out answer, like I'm dodging it. I promise you I'm not. I really could just see it going either way. Like I could see, because QuakeCon's already like a success, right? Like it's already successful and it's already a long-running thing. And it kind of has its own DNA and vibe. But at the same time, Microsoft is going to want to have these big announcements as part of their shows. Dang, that's a good question, Big Fresh. That is so hard to answer. Here's something that I think would be fun. Make it still its own thing, but time it around Xbox events. So what I mean by that is, let's say you're going to have an E3 or you're going to have an XO. Maybe have like QuakeCon like the day before. You know what I mean? Have them in close proximity so they're building off of each other if you separate them out. Now, I could also see the argument of just entirely tying them together. But if you keep them separate, that would be kind of fun. Have like a Saturday QuakeCon and a Sunday XO, right? Or a Saturday or Sunday E3 QuakeCon type thing. And then your big Xbox showcase right afterwards. Even use QuakeCon to tease into the Xbox show. That would be something that'd be kind of fun. I think it's tough to keep them super separate because once Microsoft owns them, they are Microsoft teams. And Microsoft's going to want to really showcase that. So I think at the very least, you have to tie them in close proximity if you keep them separate. But that's a great question, Big Fresh. That's a good one. All right, super chats are cleared. Back to free questions. Thank you so much, everyone. This has been an awesome chat. Still going to keep going for another probably 20 minutes. So I can still hit a lot of free questions, everyone. Elias Stapleton. Santa Monica, 2 IPs. God of War and another. Naughty Dog, maybe 2 IPs. Guerrilla, Horizon and an FPS. Sony is growing a lot of their studio's opinion. Yes, I actually had mentioned this in a tweet. It looks like Sony is kind of pursuing a 2 games each strategy with their premier studios. Now, does that mean that every single Sony team is going to have multiple games in the works at once? No, AAA development's really difficult, right? It's really expensive. It takes a ton of freaking people. So I'm not necessarily saying, oh, you're going to see every single studio with 2 IPs at once. But yeah, Elias, it's looking like a lot of their teams are, right? Insomniac, y'all already know they're going to have multiple. We've talked about this on the chat before. Insomniac are like one of the kings of juggling multiple projects, right? They're so good at developing 2 and 3 and sometimes even 4 games simultaneously. So you already know Insomniac's not going down to a 1-game studio. Like, it's just not in their DNA. I think they're really creative and they really like to do a bunch of projects. Santa Monica, we have almost a lock that they're doing God of War and something else now, right? There's just that hiring is too, they literally said an art director for a new unannounced game. And Corey, we know, wants a new IP. So, that's pretty much a lock. Guerrilla, clearly Horizon Forbidden West, and they hired a bunch of people with first-person shooter experience. Like that specifically, right? It wasn't just people with multiplayer experience, because you could say, oh, it's just going to be a multiplayer component for Horizon. And maybe it is, but they hired several people that specifically worked on FPS, including people that worked on Rainbow Six Siege. That to me sounds like a first-person shooter game. So also looks like there could be an FPS over there. Yeah, I agree, Elias. It looks like Sony is really going to start going to a 2-game strategy with a lot of their teams. Yep, it definitely looks that way, Elias. Which is exciting, right? This is very exciting. Naughty Dog's tough to say. Naughty Dog is the one that's hard for me to envision 2 games at once, just because they are so intense in their development process, right? Which was met very controversially online just last year, right? When talking about crunch and expectations and the things inside that studio. Don't mean that as a knock on Naughty Dog. I love Naughty Dog's games. I'm just saying they're already a studio that's known for crunch, that's known for like a really intense work environment. Putting another game in there as well, right? Besides like the multiplayer Last of Us thing, like a whole nother giant AAA separate game on top of whatever else, that to me seems tough. I think I could see a new IP, but I think that's going to be it. Just one new IP alongside that multiplayer project. Which I know is technically 2 games, but you get what I'm getting at, right? Not like 2 giant separate AAA 30-hour single-player games at the same time. Like, that's hard for me to envision from Naughty Dog. I think we just had another super chat drop. Oh, a couple. I missed one from Franklin Clinton. Holy cow, I just caught this. Thank goodness I caught this. Franklin Clinton, don't worry. I just caught a super chat from you that I almost missed. Don't worry. I caught it while I was scrolling down. I would have been devastated if I missed your question. I never want to miss a super chat because y'all are donating for this, right? So Franklin Clinton 98 had a super chat I almost missed, saying it was also interesting to see the difference between Europe PSN downloads and US downloads. Oh yeah, there's some big difference in tastes. On Europe, FIFA was dominating and Ghost wasn't in the top 10. Yes, it's important to note, while there are a lot of similarities between the US and Europe, there are also some big differences, right? Especially as you note in the sports games. Look at FIFA on in Europe, complete beast, and Madden's like nothing. And then look in the US, Madden is a monster and FIFA's successful, but it's nothing like it is in Europe. We also in the past, now this has changed, but there was a point in time where God of War was huge in the US and fairly mediocre in Europe. Like, it wasn't a terrible seller in Europe, but like God of War, a lot of people forget now because it's so successful globally. But it used to be a very US-centric franchise. Like, the vast bulk of its sales came from the US. That has since changed, right? God of War 2018 really opened that up. I can tell you Spider-Man, as good as it does in Europe, it still does much better in the US, just, by percentage-wise. Spider-Man is still a US thing, but huge in Europe. I'm not discounting Europe sales. I'm just saying, like, its strongest market. So yeah, there's definite differences. There's similarities. Call of Duty's giant everywhere, right? Grand Theft Auto's giant everywhere. But yeah, there's definite differences. All right. Now to the new super chat from Benji. I'm glad I saw that one from you, Franklin. Benji with another super chat. Hi, Benji. Netflix just reached 200 million subs. Insane. Insane numbers. Disney Plus, more than 86 million. Can HBO Max reach those numbers with its aggressive strategy? Fun question. Not super tied into gaming, but also, tied in to a degree. And while I'm seeing this gaming addict saying, hey, what is up, gaming addict? What is up? It is so good to see you, man. Hope you're doing well. Okay. HBO Max, I'm going to say no. I hate to say that. I know they just made some big moves in movies and things like that. Here's one thing that's really holding HBO Max back, Benji. It's not worldwide, HBO Max is still mostly a US thing, whereas Netflix is global. Disney Plus is in most markets, right? I know there's still a few, I think, that can't get Disney Plus, but it's also a global streaming brand. HBO Max, if it's going to be even kind of competitive at all, it needs to get into way more markets. It's just not available in enough. And even when it does, I don't know. Netflix and Disney are just monsters, right? HBO's big, I know, but it's not the brand Netflix and Disney are. So I could see them getting a lot more growth than they have now. But the big thing here, Benji, they need to get into more markets. They need to get into way, 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 way more. Okay. Man, we have so many questions today. I love it. I love it. All right, slow-mo backslap here with a free question. What other studios do you think will be making Star Wars content? Yeah, love it. Now that EA is no longer exclusively doing so. Here's the interesting thing here, slow-mo backslap. So back when this was like first announced and the PR came out, one of the, I don't remember exactly who it was, but basically someone from Lucasfilm said they considered this a calling out. They said, pitch us your games. We want a lot of pitches. Pitch us Star Wars games. Like, that was like a message to publishers. That to me says they want a lot of Star Wars games. They don't want just one or two Star Wars games. They want a bunch of Star Wars. So I think we're going to see a lot of Star Wars. To be perfectly honest with you, slow-mo backslap, I think almost everyone's going to take a shot at this. Like, honestly, out of the big publishers, I think Star Wars is a big enough brand. I think you're going to see everyone at least pitch something. I really do. I mean, it's a giant, giant, giant license, right? Whether we will see games from all of them, that's a lot tougher question. But at least pitching and sending ideas over to Lucasfilm, I think you're going to see everyone. I think you're going to see Ubisoft. Well, we already know Ubisoft, right? We already got Massive. But I think you're going to see Activision. I think you're going to see Take-Two. You might even see Sony and Microsoft. Don't consider that impossible, y'all. Do not consider it impossible. Now, it's going to be tougher because I assume if you're Sony or Microsoft, you're going to want that game to be exclusive, right? So that's going to make it a little bit harder than a third party. You're going to have to negotiate a bit of a different contract. But I think Star Wars is too big if you're a giant publisher to just ignore it. So yeah, I think you're going to see most big studios and publishers at least try. Now Japan, I don't know so much, right? The Capcoms, the Square Enixes, that to me is a little tough, but I should say most Western publishers. And I would love to see Obsidian make a Star Wars RPG. I would love it. Obsidian Star Wars RPG. Come on, y'all. Neowise. Is the Santa Monica studio possibly working on a Star Wars IP or any other Sony first party working on one? So I kind of just answered your second part there, Neowise. But Santa Monica, no, I don't think so. I think that is brand new IP because I'm pretty sure Cory Barlog is going to be the one directing it. There's a lot of rumors out there that Cory is not the one directing God of War Ragnarok, right? So he got to be doing something, right? I'm sure he is in some way involved with Ragnarok. But he also sent out a interesting tweet quite a while back, that implied somebody else might be directing that game. So Corey's doing something, right? Corey ain't just chilling. So, yeah, Neowise, I suspect it is a brand new IP headed by Corey Barlog. All right, we just had a super chat drop. Timmer72299 with another super chat. Holy cow, Timmer. Timmer, you have... I love all the super chats from you, Timmer. I'm going to save your bank account. You don't have to do any more for this week, right? You're off the hook. You've donated so much today, Timmer. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Do you see Todd Howard or ZeniMax's CEO's son starting his own game studio? Whoa, this is a wild question. This is a wild question. Whoa. Timmer, I think you're the expert here on Bethesda. I did not even know that Todd... So I'm guessing ZeniMax CEO's son is in some way involved in game development. I did not know this. So this is actually something from you, Timmer. This is like fresh info for me. For Todd Howard himself, it's hard for me to see him ever leaving Bethesda. I think Todd Howard's a lifer at Bethesda. I really do. He has been there for so long. He is just like such a integral part of Bethesda. I mean, I'm sure he would get offered a freaking ton of money from another company to leave, right? Regardless of how people feel about Todd Howard, he is literally one of the most known, high scale studio devs / leaders there is in the entire industry. I mean, literally, you could not even play Bethesda games and you know the name Todd Howard. So he's one of those people like Kojima that can, ask for a serious price tag for his services. But he is just such an integral part of the DNA of Bethesda. I could not see him leaving. Even with the Microsoft acquisition, I don't think Todd Howard leaves Bethesda until he retires. I think he is a true lifer there. I could be wrong, but I don't think he ever leaves. In terms of ZeniMax CEO's son, Timmer, I did not even know that he's like involved with gaming or the process. So I'm going to defer that to you because I know you've done a ton of research into ZeniMax. So you would probably know better than me on that one. All right. I'm going to go. What time is it? All right, I got 15 minutes left to stream, and then I got a hard out because I got to get ready for work. So we got 15 more minutes, y'all. I'm going to start hitting questions from people that haven't gotten a question answered yet. I'm going to try to, or people that do super chats, of course. But super chats and people that haven't gotten questions yet is going to be kind of my main focus for the last 15 minutes. So I'm going to be skipping around here a little bit. Grand Theft Auto Man 51 saying, hi from France. Greetings to France. I love seeing people from all over the world in chat. It's like my favorite thing. What are your expectations for today's Resident Evil live stream? I am hyped. I'm hoping for a Resident Evil Village release date and maybe a demo. Okay, Grand Theft Auto Man 51. Everyone who follows me knows I love horror games. I love horror. Love horror games. So my hype for the Resident Evil showcase is like a 10 out of 10. Like, I'm just pumped. I think Resident Evil Village looks amazing. So yeah, we already know we're going to get gameplay. So that's a lock. I do think we're going to get a release date. And my prediction for a release date is April or May. Those 2 months. I think it's going to be one of those two. An April or May release date for Resident Evil Village. So I think we get that. I think we're going to see Resident Evil 4 Remake announced because they tease that there are other announcements here besides Resident Evil Village. And the timeline would appear that Resident Evil 4 Remake is going to be the next game after Village, like standalone Resident Evil title. So I think they're going to announce Resident Evil 4 Remake for 2022. And I think we see it announced. Now, I don't know that we're going to see a ton on that. It might be just honestly a very brief, like 1 minute teaser trailer, but I do think that. So those are my main expectations. Release date for Resident Evil 4 Village, Resident Evil 8 Village, and then a reveal for Resident Evil 4 Remake. And I will melt down and lose my mind on both. Oh, Ryan Tolu was in the chat saying, hi, Benji, Happy New Year. Good to see you, Ryan Tolu. Always good to see you. Happy New Year to you, too, as well. I hope you're doing great. Neowise saying, honestly, PS5 doesn't need the Japanese market anymore anyways. Console sales have been on the decline since PS3, and the market is mostly mobile and Switch. Neowise, I'm actually mostly with you in terms of like sales. I'll be honest. I will be a little sad if Sony loses some of its Japanese DNA in terms of games. That's always been a big part of the appeal of PlayStation consoles, I believe, dating all the way back to the PS1. A lot of its most legendary games, over the course of time has come from so many Japanese teams and studios. So I agree with you strictly in terms of sales. Sony honestly doesn't really need Japan. Even when you look at PS4, Japan was a fairly small fraction of its sales. It's always nice to have a healthy Japanese market for your sales, right? I'm not saying it's like, oh, just forget Japan, who cares? Don't get me wrong. It's very nice to have a healthy Japan on your side. But the main hit to me would be if they just go so into Western games that we lose a little bit of that Japanese vibe on the PlayStation. It's always going to be there to some degree, right? Final Fantasy is going to always be there. Persona is always going to be there. So no matter what, you're still going to get a lot of big Japanese games. But part of the appeal of PlayStation has been, in history, that Japanese side. So that would be a bummer if it goes really far down the Western side to where Japan's almost like an afterthought. That would be a bit of a bummer to me. Adi Tra saying, I wonder if Sony tries to get Dragon Quest 12 exclusive. Adi, they would have to pay a metric F ton. Okay? Which isn't impossible, right? Clearly they paid for Final Fantasy 16. That was not an exclusive for free. They literally paid money to get that. But Dragon Quest would be a whole nother ball game because Switch is just I'm telling you, Adi, moving forward, it's going to be really hard if you're a Japanese team to ignore the Switch. That install base is freaking nuts. First of all, it's freaking nuts in Japan. And second of all, it's friggin' nuts globally, right? Switch is well on its way to hit into the top 3 best-selling consoles of all time. Now, it's hard for me to envision it hitting PS2 numbers. PS2 is just nuts. It's hard to picture a console selling more. Impossible? No. But until a console passes PS2, I'm never going to predict a console to pass PS2. You know what I'm getting at? Because that's our high bar. I need to see it to believe it. But Switch should be able to hit top 3. They really should be able to hit top 3. So, man, that's hard to ignore if you're a Japanese developer. It's very hard to ignore. Ooh, we just had a 15 super chat drop. Kellegrim with the 15. It's so good to see you, Kellegrim. What is up, Kellegrim? So good to see you, man. Sup, Benji? Do you have a theory as to why EA didn't use Bioware to put out a Star Wars RPG? Great question. While they still had the contract. Seems like a missed opportunity. I agree with you. It's definitely a missed opportunity. Kellegrim, I think the main reason is I think EA thought Anthem was going to be huge. A lot of investment went into Anthem. And I know from reports that have come out from Jason Schreier and stuff, BioWare and EA thought that Anthem was going to be the thing, right? That game was codenamed Dylan. And the reason it was codenamed Dylan was in reference to Bob Dylan. Like that it was going to be genre defining, like Bob Dylan. I'm not making this up, okay? This is all from Jason Schreier's reporting. So that shows you, like, they thought Anthem was going to be, boom, huge. And as we have all seen, it did not happen. It did not pan out, right? So I think that's the main, honestly, reason why, is because BioWare was busy with Anthem. There was Mass Effect Andromeda that was in the works. They made Dragon Age Inquisition, right, last gen. So when you look over the gen, they were always fairly busy, and the most resources went into Anthem. So it kind of became one of those things by the time Anthem came out and, you know, largely failed, to be honest. That was already so late that we don't know. Maybe they do have an RPG in development. I don't think they do, with the next Mass Effect and the next Dragon Age already in development. But that all happened so late, right? By the time Anthem came out and failed, they were already well into the Star Wars contract. So I think it was just one of those timing things, right? I think that BioWare thought they were going to be busy on Anthem for the next decade. I mean, with how big expectations internally were, I thought they were like, yo, we're going to be all in on the Anthem train for 10 years. And yeah, that did not happen. Dangerman1337, Starfield and God of War sequel, both 2021 releases. Ooh, I say one of the two. Yes. Which one that will be, I'm not sure. Yes, I know God of War is announced for 2021. I've been on the record saying I still think it's going to happen. But that, to me, God of War has a legit shot of being delayed. I would say it's like, I'm an optimist, so I'm going to say it's 60-40 that God of War makes this year. But if you're not an optimist, you could easily say it's 50-50 or worse. I know that Randall Thor, I think I'm saying his name right, who's well versed in the Xbox side, says that he believes that Starfield's 2021. I have also theorized on this channel that I think Starfield's a contender for 2021 release. I think one of these two does make it, but which one, I'm honestly not sure. I think that both of these games, we know God of War was targeted for this year, and I think there's a good shot Starfield was targeting 2021. But with COVID, you know, I mean, that threw everything for a loop. So I'd be surprised if both of them make it, though it would be hype. It would be dope. But I think only one. I think only one's going to make it. Here's a good question from ProGinge. Do you think Sony need a first-party, full-blown RPG? Xbox has RPGs on lock, and RPG fans on PlayStation might be feeling left out later in the gen. Thoughts? It's a good question. Of the two, you know, in the future, Microsoft seems to be, wow. Their upcoming RPG slate, like if you're a fan specifically of RPGs, you know, right now, it might be easy to ignore Xbox, but I'll tell you what, in like 2 to 3 years, and I know this is always the story with Microsoft, right? In a few years, the games are going to come. I totally get the criticism, right? But right now, like, Fable's on the way. Elder Scrolls 6 is on the way. We don't know yet how that's going to go. Could still be on PlayStation, right? We genuinely have no idea. But either way, you have Elder Scrolls on the horizon. You have Avowed from Obsidian on the way. You have to assume Obsidian's going to make the Outer Worlds 2 because the first one was a big success. We know In Exile is working on a next-gen big triple ARPG is how they've described it. Not like Wasteland, which Wasteland was, you know, awesome and a big success. But whatever they're working on next is different than what the Wasteland games are. So yeah, I mean, Microsoft is like RPG City in the next, you know, 2 to 3 to 4 years. Sony has Horizon, which is like an action RPG. I know it's not like a traditional hardcore RPG, but it's like an action RPG. I would like to see it, ProGinge. Yeah, I'd like to see it. I'd love to see Naughty Dog or Santa Monica's game be an RPG. That would be dope, right? I'd love to see that. So did they need it like a requirement? I would say no, but it's always nice to have variety. So I would love to see it because yes, that is one thing that in the future, as of now, it looks like Microsoft will have the RPG edge for first party over Sony in that specific genre. Seems like shooters and RPGs, right? It seems like that's kind of Microsoft's strategy. They're going to have other games too, but like shooters and RPGs seems to be their main wheelhouse. Ooh, I like this idea from Big Fresh 37. A Ninja Theory game about Ahsoka would be fantastic. Yo, Big Fresh, count me in on that. Yeah, that would be dope. Dope, dope, dope. Yeah, count me in on that. A Ninja Theory Ahsoka game? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. The S.A. Zelf here. How much longer do I got? Ooh, okay. I'm going to hit this and then I'm going to hit one more question. Because then I got to get ready for work, y'all. So I have a hard out. This has been an amazing chat. Let me hit this and then I'm going to pull out one more. The S.A. Zelf. What do CD Projekt Red do for the next gen Witcher 3 patch? Release it as fast as possible for goodwill. Cancel it to focus on Cyberpunk 2077. Or wait for season 2 of the Netflix show. Here is my thing, the S.A. Zelf. Everything CD Projekt does, literally for the foreseeable future, needs to be take their time and get it right. Take their time, get it right. I know a lot of people love Cyberpunk 2077. This is not me bashing on Cyberpunk. In fact, I own it. I just haven't played it yet. I'm going to go ahead and wait for the next gen patch. But there is just zero debate. That game was met very mixed, okay? Very, very, very mixed. Whatever they do, whether it's Witcher patches, Cyberpunk patches, new games, DLCs, CD Projekt, do not rush. Take your time. Get it right. Get it out the door, polished, in a good state, and that is going to be how you build back your goodwill, right? They're in a position now where they went from a high up here, y'all. They were one of the most respected teams in the industry to a big drop, okay? I think they can earn that back, but it's going to be earned back through actions. So they have to just build that trust back up. And that's going to take time, and it's going to be making sure you get it right. Okay, one more question, and then I got to bounce. One more. All right, Avery Cope. Avery Cope's going to get the last question here. And before I answer Avery Cope's question, thank you everyone for making it out to the chat today. I had a ton of fun. This was a great chat, a really good one. I feel really good after last week's chat. I know that was a rough one. I know the quality of the stream was kind of all over the place, and that distracted me. I was kind of distracted throughout the stream. We had a great one here today, everyone. So I'm going to do the shout out right now. I haven't mentioned it all stream, but if you could hit the like button, if you like doing these chats, liking definitely helps out the algorithm. It helps my YouTube channel get found. And subscribe if you like the chat, because we do one of these every single week, and we're on our way to 3,000 subscribers over here on the channel. We're not too far. We only need a little over 200 subs, and we're at 3,000. So like the video and subscribe if you haven't, everyone. Avery Cope here with the last question. Assuming the Switch Pro comes out in the near future, would Nintendo eventually move on from the Switch or just go with the Switch 2 using a new generation of NVIDIA tech? Avery Cope, they need to call it Switch 2. I know that is a very boring answer. I know it's boring, y'all. But after what we saw with Wii and Wii U and confusing naming and confusing marketing, the Switch brand has become so colossal, Avery. It would be a huge mistake from Nintendo to abandon that and just call it something weird or Switch with a weird name. It's boring, but Switch 2 is the easiest way to communicate to your average random, shopper that, hey, that Switch that you loved? This is the next new thing. So they need to just call it Switch 2. That's going to be a lot more successful for them than coming up with like crazy off the wall names. I know Nintendo's creative and they like to kind of do their own thing, but no, just call it Switch 2. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you for an awesome chat. It was so good to see everyone. It was a great chat. It was a great stream. Thank you for all the amazing questions. Thank you for all the interactions. If I did not get to your question, save them. We're coming back next week. Next week, there's going to be another live chat. We do them every single week. Thank you, everyone, for all of the super chats. Stay safe. Play some games. I will catch it either over on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter if you're not already. Or I'll see you over here on YouTube next week, everyone. Have a great day, and I will see y'all soon. Bye.